Здравствуйте, товарищи, and welcome to another coffee house video. And in this video, this is going to be another more, like, you might notice that on this channel I kind of alternate between very kind of maybe angry videos, where I'm, more angry about something specific in politics or life or something, and I kind of deliver an opinion or a monologue about that. And then there's videos where I kind of ask questions, where I'm thinking about something, and I don't really have, a strong opinion or something. It's just something, a question or something I have in my head that I'm thinking about. And today is one of those videos, and I get less angry email when I do these kind of videos. When I do more angry kind of videos, I get plenty of angry email from other people. So, let's do it. I got lots of angry email from neoconservatives last video I did, but a lot of people agreed with me. A lot more people agreed with me than disagreed with me, which was good stuff. But this is more of a question-based video. And the question I've been thinking about is, what if the Germans had won World War I? How would have things in the world played out differently? Because in my mind, World War I was the most transformative event of the 20th century. Even more transformative than World War II. Because World War I literally took the old world and grinded it up in a meat grinder and chewed it up and spat it out. Like, Europe was covered in empires at the time, and World War I was the graveyard of several of history's greatest empires. The German Empire transformed. They lose the Kaiser. They've got this new social democracy in place. German Empire is essentially gone. The Austo-Hungarian Empire is destroyed and transformed into a bunch of different little countries based on nationality. The Russian Empire transformed to the Soviet Empire. Greatly shrunken down, lost lots of territory that was traditionally part of the Russian Empire, and they became their own countries. Ottoman Empire was destroyed and became Turkey. Britain was never the same. France was never the same. Just ate, countries up and spat them out. And still today, we're really kind of suffering sort of the ripples and after effects of the end of the kind of old world, end of that kind of the reign of monarchs and empires and that kind of deal, and still trying to smooth out those after effects and still trying to build up this world that we have today. So very powerful and transformative event, and I've been speculating on how wildly different our world today would have been if the Germans had won World War I instead of the Allies. Or more rather, the Central Powers, because it wasn't just Germany. It was Austro-Hungary and Turkey were both part of the German Allies. And, I've been thinking about this. Like, I've got a couple different scenarios in my head of how things could turn out. One scenario is it's kind of almost a repeat of the Franco-Prussian War. If you guys don't know, in 1870 and 1871, Otto von Bismarck and, the new Prussian sort of empire came in and invaded France and took it over and beat them pretty nicely, beat them pretty decisively in the Franco-Prussian War. But Germany gained a couple territories, but not a whole lot changed. Would it be a repeat of that kind of thing? Would the Kaiser just kind of sign a peace deal with France and Britain, and then maybe they gained some territories and some colonial possessions kind of deal, and then maybe the old world endures for another 20 or 30 or 40 years or however long, but then another war comes along, and then again they have the terrible war that destroys the old structure of things. Or does Germany invade France and instill kind of their own version of the Treaty of Versailles on France, and then maybe we have like a reversal of things where France suffers heartily under this sort of the Treaty of Versailles that Germany imposes on them, and then they get a radical dictator to rise out of France and take it over and invade Germany. Do we get like a reversal of things? And depending on where we're going to say that Germany won the First World War in the historical timeline, we'll decide if there's a Soviet Union or not. Because the Germans came very close to winning World War I right after Russia fell. They also came very close to winning World War I right after the war started, they came very close to taking Paris. And you know, if you take Paris, it's maybe, you know, most likely, but that's not for certain, you sort of capitulate France and take over France. And they came close to winning World War I in the beginning, and if they win at that point, then there's probably no Soviet Union. But when Russia capitulated in 1917, and sort of Lenin and the Bolsheviks started consolidating power and taking over, the Germans initiated a assault called the Kaiserschlacht. That might be mispronouncing that a little bit, but you know, they initiated this assault called the Kaiserschlacht, where they took all the troops from the Eastern Front and threw them at the Allies. They're very, you know, tired and, you know, not ready for this assault. Allies, the Americans hadn't been in a lot of force at that point, and you know, let's say they win at the Kaiserschlacht and they take over France, then you know, we still have a Soviet empire. So you know, it could go either way at this point. And just these kind of what-if questions are one of the things I love about history. I don't like taking history classes. It seems when I take history classes, they kind of remove the cool human experiences I like about history. I like kind of imagining, you know, myself in these positions and some of these people were in during historical times. And you know, when you take a history class, it really kind of removes the human aspect out of history, and that's my favorite part of it. But, you know, just wondering these what-if questions is really kind of fascinating to me. So, you know, I've also heard some really weird what-ifs if Germany won World War I. We have like a communist revolution in both France and Britain. America, for some reason, endures another civil war. I've heard that one before. I'm not exactly sure how they came about that conclusion. But, you know, maybe France, like I said, France and Britain have these revolutions, and instead they get either communist or fascist dictators taking over. German Empire still endures, and it's kind of, you know, a reversal of World War I. No, do we still, if Germany wins the First World War, do we still endure under, or does Europe still endure under monarchs and emperors and czars and kaisers? Oh, France was technically, you know, a republic, but you know what I mean. Britain was also a constitutional monarchy. Do we still have an Austro-Hungarian empire today, or do we still have all these different autonomous countries? Really cool things to just sit back and think about. You know, just how different would our world be today? All these countries might not exist. There'd definitely be no UN. There'd be no, you know, because there would be no predecessor, the League of Nations. There'd be no World War II. There'd be no Cold War. And you know, just think about how we're still living with the effects of the Cold War. If there's no Cold War, then what the hell do you have? You know, does Japan still rise to power and become this dominant force in Asia? You know, who knows? Cool stuff to think about. And I definitely want to hear what you guys would think. What if, I want to hear what you guys think. What would happen if Germany won World War I? And then there's something that we haven't even talked about. Does Germany invade Britain? Like, what if they take over France and Russia capitulates? And what happens then? Do they take over Britain? Does Britain surrender? And, you know, does Britain surrender before America gets into the war? If they lose France, is it still possible for the Allies to win? Is it then possible for them to do like a D-Day-esque landing in World War I? All these different things we still haven't considered, and now I get like a little bit of a boost in time so I can talk a little bit more. But you know, there's just so many different weird angles and so many different what-ifs if Germany had won World War I. It boggles the mind to really comprehend what could have happened. You know, what kind of world do we end up in today? Because I really don't consider like the Kaiser's army to be evil, quote unquote. I know it's hard to in war to differentiate between good and evil, and I don't like to think about things in that way because I think it's kind of simplistic and sometimes flat out wrong. Because in warfare, all moral boundaries are blurred, and when you're in the heat of battle, nobody gives a crap about what's right or wrong. Nobody cares. And to sit back and try and look at things moralistically from such a standpoint is really kind of folly on my books. But we'll try it a little bit anyway. But I don't consider like the Kaiser's army to be evil, quote unquote. I consider Hitler to be just a little bit more quote unquote evil than what the Kaisers had, because the Kaiser wanted to take over lands kind of for the glory of the Kaiser. He didn't have this weird overarching worldview where he thought the Jews and the Slavs and the Gypsies and the gays and the gays and the handicaps were all evil and they all need to be purged from society. He didn't have this weird social Darwinian view that he wanted to remake the German race and do selective breeding and have, you know, the best of the females mate with the best of the males and not have all these other races breeding with each other and drowning out the German race. No, the Kaiser just wanted to be the Kaiser, and he wanted to be this conqueror, and he wanted to gain all these lands for his own kind of, you know, personal benefit. So, you know, I don't consider the army of Germany's World War I to be, you know, really evil, because basically everyone was fighting for the same motivation. It's something that we can't really understand nowadays. Like, I don't think that if you know, such a world war were to break out, I don't think you could get my generation to stand in the trenches and fight for our country. I don't think you could get from any country really for their generation to stand in the trenches and then throw themselves at machine guns and artillery to get chewed up, you know, over and over and over again and just waste all these lives. But there's a different feeling from back then. There's a different feeling that there was a lot of glory to war, that there was a lot of glory in fighting and dying for the Kaiser, or fighting for king and country like these British contemptibles would. And we can't understand that today. I don't think we can really understand such an overwhelming sense of nationalism and such an overwhelming sense of duty to this, you know, figurehead of the country. There's no you know, Kaiser for us to be fighting anymore. There's no reason for us to stand in the trenches and then throw ourselves at machine guns and artillery fire. And there was actually a point in the war where the French wouldn't do that. They said they mutinied against their commanders and said, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're not going to get out of these trenches, and we're not going to charge those machine guns anymore. You're wasting our lives. You're wasting our time. We're not going to do this. And I think that if, you know, you were to put me and most of the guys on, most of my subscribers on YouTube and, you know, most of my friends in the trenches, I think that would happen pretty fast. So we say, we're not getting out of these trenches. We're not going to charge into those machine guns. And, you know, if Germany wins World War I, do we still kind of have that feeling? Or are we really so, because, you know, are we really so embittered and so cynical about war after seeing these great atrocities committed in World War I and World War II? Do we still have that kind of feeling of bitterness towards war and this cynical nature and this second guessing of these higher powers in government? You know, even more so that you can break things down from such grandiose global scales to, you know, individual mental processes on how you know, we as human beings have developed in the society that has been built after World War I. You know, we could be completely different, you know, human beings in terms of our mental processes if Germany wins World War I. So you can break this question down and look at it in so many different angles, and it's something I really love doing, but I'm running out of time. So let me know what you guys think. What do you think would happen if Germany won World War I? And for now, this is going to be Joseph Stalin signing off, and I'll see you guys later.